All right, listeners, ready for a deep dive into something pretty wild.
Absolutely.
It's called LLM MapReduce, and it's all about helping those amazing large language models,
LLMs.
right? LLMs deal with huge amounts of text.
Like imagine trying to read a novel through a tiny little peephole.
Oh, I see. So it's like they can only see a tiny bit of the text at a time.
Exactly. That's the problem of limited context windows in LLMs. They can get overwhelmed by really long documents.
So how does LLM MapReduce help with that? Does it like make the LLM smarter or something?
Not exactly. It's more like giving them a brand new strategy for handling all that information.
Oh, okay. So instead of trying to cram a whole book into an LLM's brain all at once, what do?
Well, they break down the text into smaller, more manageable chunks, kind of like a team project.
So it's like dividing a giant research paper amongst a study group.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. Each
Yeah.
LLM focuses on its assigned chunk and becomes a specialized researcher.
Pulling out the key information related to the user's question.
Precisely. That's what we call the map stage.
Okay, so I'm picturing a team of LLMs, each with their highlighter and pen, underlining key phrases and taking notes.
And the cool part is each LLM produces a little report. It's like they're summarizing their findings.
So what's in these reports?
Well, they include the extracted information, basically the important facts the LLM found, plus their rationale why they think it's important.
So they're explaining their thought process
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the LLM provides its answer to your question.
based on what it found in its assigned chunk.
Right. And get this, they even include a confidence score.
A confidence score. Wait, so the LM is like, I'm 80% sure this is the answer, boss.
It's more nuanced than that. Think of it as a way for the system to assess the reliability of each LLM's findings.
Interesting. Okay, so we have all these mini reports from our LLM team, each with its own confidence level.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't there a risk of missing connections? Like, what if the answer to my question is actually spread across multiple chunks?
That's a great question. And that's where the structured information protocol comes in.
Okay, tell me more about that. It sounds important.
It's all about ensuring that crucial details, even if they don't directly answer your question, are passed along to the next stage.
So even if one LLM is working on chapter 3 of a novel, it might flag a character detail that becomes crucial in chapter 7.
Exactly. No piece of the puzzle gets lost. But hold on. There's another hurdle we need to tackle.
Another one. What is it?
Even with these reports, we might still end up with a mountain of information, especially with super long texts.
So even after all that splitting and analyzing, there's still too much data.
Sometimes, yes. And that's where the collapse stage comes in. Think of it like creating a concise movie trailer from a really long film.
So it's like condensing the most exciting and important parts while keeping things organized.
You got it.
Okay, so we've divided, we've analyzed, we've condensed. But what happens when two LLMs come back with totally different answers?
That's what we call interchunk conflict. It's a fascinating challenge.
Like, imagine one LLM reads a witness saying the suspect was at the crime scene, and another LLM reads a different witness saying the suspect was miles away.
Exactly. How do you reconcile those conflicting accounts?
Yeah, that's tricky. So how does LLM MapReduce handle that?
It uses a clever mechanism called in-context confidence calibration.
Okay, break that down for me. What does that even mean?
Imagine you have friends giving you conflicting advice about a movie.
Happens all the time.
To decide which friend to trust, you'd consider their past recommendations, right?
Yeah, like, has this friend steered me wrong before?
This mechanism does something similar. It uses those confidence scores to weigh the evidence from each LLM, almost like a judge evaluating witness testimonies.
So it figures out which LLM is more likely to be right based on how confident they are in their past performance.
Exactly. And by doing that, LLM MapReduce can resolve conflicts and ensure its final answer is based on the most reliable information.
Wow, this is amazing. We've gone from a situation where an LLM was struggling to read a long text to a system where it can break things down, cross-reference findings, and even figure out which information is most trustworthy.
It's a pretty remarkable system, and the best part is the results are incredibly impressive. But we'll dive into those details in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh man, now I'm really curious. We've laid the groundwork, and I'm ready to see how powerful LLM MapReduce really is. Listeners, stay tuned for part 2.
Welcome back to our deep dive, folks. Last time we saw how LLM MapReduce tackles those tricky problems of dependency and conflict between different parts of a text.
Yeah, it's like getting a bunch of LLMs to work together as a team.
Exactly. And those mini reports they generate are really the key to making it all work.
Right. Those reports. Remind me again what's in them.
Well, each report has 4 main parts. First, there's the extracted information. That's where the LLM lists out all the important facts and details it found.
So it's like a detective gathering clues, only focusing on what's relevant to the case.
Exactly. Then you have the rationale. That's where the LLM explains its reasoning.
Like, here's why I think these clues are important, and here's how I connected the dots.
Precisely. It's all about transparency, making sure the LLM isn't just making things up.
Right, we want to avoid those AI hallucinations.
Exactly. Then, of course, you have the answer itself, the LLM's direct response to your question.
Based on everything it's analyzed so far.
Right. And finally, you have the confidence score, which tells you how certain the LLM is about its answer.
So it might say something like, I'm 90% sure this is right, because I found multiple sources that back it up.
Or maybe I'm only 50% sure because the information was a bit vague. Something like that.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So how does all this structured information help with those dependencies between different chunks of text?
Well, sometimes the answer to your question might be spread out across multiple sections.
Like in a mystery novel, where you have to piece together clues from different chapters.
Exactly. And this structured information protocol makes sure that those crucial details, even if they don't seem super important at first glance, get passed along from one stage to the next.
So it's like a relay race. Each LLM is handing off the baton, making sure nothing gets dropped.
Exactly. But what about those times when two LLMs come back with completely opposite answers?
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier, the inter-chunk conflict.
Right. So how do we make sure that the system chooses the right answer when that happens?
Well, we have those confidence scores, right?
We do, but it's not just about having them. It's about making sure they're all on the same scale.
So it's like making sure all the judges in a competition are using the same scoring system.
Precisely. This is where the in-context confidence calibration mechanism comes in.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around that name. Could you give me a real-world example of how it works?
Sure. Let's say you're asking the system to analyze a historical event. One LLM might describe it as a peaceful protest, while another describes it as a violent riot.
Okay, two very different interpretations.
Yeah, exactly. And this mechanism would provide the LLMs with guidelines for assigning those confidence scores.
So it's like saying, okay, if you're claiming this, you need to back it up with solid evidence.
Right. And the LLMs that can provide the strongest evidence get the highest marks.
That makes sense. So in the end, the system's final answer is based on the most credible information, even when there are conflicting accounts.
Exactly. And that's how LLM MapReduce manages to achieve such impressive accuracy. But the real magic happens in the next stage, where it all comes together.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. We've done all this prep work, analyzing the text, scoring the answers. What happens next?
Well, that's where we enter the reduce stage, the grand finale of our LLM orchestra. And that, my friend, is a story for part 3 of our deep dive.
Okay, listeners, we're back for the final part of our LLM MapReduce adventure.
The moment of truth.
Exactly. We've seen how it breaks down those massive texts, analyzes everything, scores the answers. But how does it all come together in the end? What's the final step?
That's where the reduce stage steps in. It's like the conductor of our LLM orchestra.
Bringing all the instruments together.
Right, precisely. It takes all those mini reports from the LLMs, each with their findings and their confidence scores.
And then
it carefully reviews each one, prioritizing the findings with the highest confidence.
So it's like a judge giving more weight to the most credible witnesses.
Exactly. And by taking those confidence scores into account, the reduce stage can resolve any remaining conflicts.
So it's not just about combining the answers. It's about intelligently selecting the most reliable information.
You got it. It's all about finding the signal and the noise and then weaving it all together into a single coherent answer.
Hold on. So you're telling me this system can take a text the size of War and Peace, break it down, analyze it, and then give me a clear answer to my question. Just like that.
Yep. Pretty amazing, right?
It sounds almost too good to be true. Did they actually test this thing?
Of course. They put LLM MapReduce through its paces using a benchmark called Infinite Bench.
And how did it do?
It blew the competition out of the water. It not only kept up with other LLMs, it actually outperformed even those specialized long context models in many cases.
Wow. So it can handle these huge texts, and it does it with incredible accuracy.
Yep, but speed matters too, right?
Absolutely. Nobody wants to wait forever for an answer.
Well, good news there too. In many tests, LLM MapReduce was actually faster than traditional LLMs.
No way. So it's accurate and it's fast.
The best of both worlds. It's like having a super-powered research assistant who's both incredibly thorough and amazingly efficient.
Okay, this is seriously impressive. But let's talk real-world applications. How could this change the way we deal with information every day?
Oh, the possibilities are endless. Imagine lawyers using this to analyze mountains of legal documents.
Oh, That would save them so much time.
And think about scientific research. Researchers could use it to sift through tons of papers and data, maybe even uncover hidden connections that lead to new discoveries.
So we're talking about revolutionizing entire fields of study. That's huge.
It is. But it goes beyond those specialized areas. Think about how much information we consume online every day, articles, social media videos.
It's overwhelming.
Exactly. But LLM MapReduce could help us make sense of it all. Imagine personalized news feeds that summarize key information from multiple sources.
Ooh, I like that. I'm always trying to stay informed, but it feels impossible to keep up with everything.
Right. And it could even go further. Imagine an LLM that analyzes your reading habits and recommends articles or books tailored to your interests.
That would be amazing. It's like having a personal librarian who knows exactly what I like.
Exactly. Or think about education personalized study guides that adapt to your learning style.
No, that's what I call a personalized learning experience.
It is. And we're only just scratching the surface here. As LLM MapReduce keeps evolving, who knows what other incredible applications we'll see.
This has been an amazing journey. We've gone from the limitations of those context windows to a system that makes LLMs super readers capable of understanding and synthesizing enormous amounts of information.
It's a testament to human ingenuity and the power of AI.
Absolutely. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into LLM MapReduce. Thanks for joining us. It's been a wild ride.
Indeed, it has.
But remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing those boundaries. Until next time, stay curious, everyone.